You're live.
Are we up and running? Mm-hmm. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Licensing Subcommittee of Tuesday, the 23rd of May. I'll just make a few short announcements before we go any further. My most important announcement is always, can you put your mobile phones on silent? I understand some of you may be on call, need to go elsewhere, so just on silent rather than off. I always look at my councillor colleagues because we're the worst offenders at these, and they're both indicating that they're both on silent. Thank you for that, councillors. I do appreciate your assistance in that. You may be aware that we're on TV, so we're on YouTube, so hello to the outside world. So this will be recorded, and everything you will say will be recorded as long as you press the button right in front of the microphone when you get to speak. That would be great. We're not expecting a fire alarm today. Fire alarms usually take place on a Wednesday about 10:30, so a fire alarm won't be taking place. So if the alarm bells do go off, please vacate the building. There's a fire exit behind you, the green door. There's also a fire exit over there. We go down the stairs till we go down to the ground floor, and we assemble quite happily, as always say, outside the Slug and Lettuce. So we assemble at another licensed premises. Before I go any further, I need to introduce the subcommittee members who will make a decision. On my far right is Councillor Lynn Allen, and next to her is Councillor Pat Jackson. I'm Councillor Dominic Gillam. I'm the chairman of the subcommittee. And I also have, to assist me in making decisions, I have both Liz Penny and Neil Fraser from Democratic Services. We have Jyoti Mehta, who's our legal representative, and make sure that the decisions we make are just. I'm sure you've engaged already with Steve Dorman, our licensing authority. And at this point, I just want to point out we have someone else from our legal team who's in the back of the room. So hello, and thank you for coming along today. If I can just ask you to press the red button, indicate who you are, what's your name, where you're from, and then press it and switch back off.
Good afternoon. My name's Claire Johnson. I'm the solicitor acting for Cineworld Cinemas this afternoon.
Hello, I'm Sam Tomlinson. I'll be the General Manager of Cineworld South Ruislip.
Good afternoon. My name is Iman Fati, Regional Manager, Cineworld Cinemas.
Thank you very much indeed. You're both very welcome. And councillors, could you just press the button and, well, you know how it works.
Councillor Alan Kaufman, Ward Councillor for South Ruislip.
Councillor Judy Kelly, also Ward Councillor for South Ruislip.
Okay, thank you all very much. That seemed to work quite well, so I'm good at that point. Okay, we will have an order of proceedings. We will try and remain to that. I think it works well that we have a meeting with some sort of direction, and so we'll follow that through. So if we carry on now and go for the actual agenda. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence.
No apologies received, Chairman.
Okay, declarations of interest coming before this committee. No interest whatsoever. Okay, noted. Thank you. I can confirm that all parts of this business are in part 1. So therefore, members of the public are more than welcome to attend. I must stress this is not a public meeting. It's a meeting held in public, but there's no part 2 or sensitive information taking part in it. And can we all just clarify there is no matters that have been notified in advance or urgent?
Nothing received, Chairman.
One point I want to clarify at this point is that there was an addendum pack circulated. Do all members have that pack? And do all interested parties and applicants have that pack? Excellent. Okay, at that point then, we'll just move over to the... Jyoti, do you want to make a statement on the legal bit?
Yes, members, just to confirm, the legal comments in the addendum are the legal comments that you should be considering. So please do ignore the legal comments in the published reports. Just concentrate, if you can, on the legal comments within the addendum that is before you now. Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, so we'll go over now to agenda item 5, an application for a grant of premises licence, Cineworld.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. You've all had the report bundle and are familiar with the salient points of the application. I take this opportunity to provide a verbal summary of the application and assist the subcommittee with obtaining the facts in determining the application. May I take this opportunity to explain the following parts of the plan and external map of the surrounding areas of the premises. Internally, patrons will enter the cinema at ground level where there will be a Starbucks at the ground level point of entry. Escalators and other ways of getting to the first floor will be situated at the ground floor to take them to a first floor highlighted area which is in pink on the plan. The highlighted green areas in the area where the customers will wait for drinks and snacks, including any alcohol items that they wish to purchase. The area highlighted in red is the counter or the concession stand where they will serve alcohol and non-alcoholic drinks along with snacks from that area. The majority of the time, the alcohol will be sold from this location. However, the applicant has expressed their wish to say that they wish to operate mobile units in and around the cinema complex. This is something at the moment that they informed me that they're not prepared to do at this stage, but it's something they may wish to do in the future. The external areas...
Can you just clarify the last point that you made in terms of what's part of the actual application?
The part of the application include the area that I've highlighted are the areas that the majority of the time is where they will sell any alcoholic drinks from. But the whole of the cinema complex on the first floor could they potentially may wish to in the future sell alcohol from mobile units in and around
but that's not. Sorry, Stephen. Just to clarify, that is not part of the application we're hearing today, is it?
Could I possibly?
No. Sorry, I need to. We have an application from you, and it doesn't mention that whatsoever. So I'm just trying to clarify. Stephen, can you just answer that question? Is the mobile units part of our application pack in front of us today?
On the plan, the public areas where all licensable activities are permitted, they've highlighted actually in a green on the outline of the actual plan of the first floor. So they are wishing us to consider that according to this plan.
So it is part.
Yes.
Thank you, Rashidin.
Which we've got clarification from the applicant from that. Frankie and Benny's, so if we can take you to the external areas immediately next door to Cineworld, is a Frankie and Benny's. Their alcohol sales are available until 12 o'clock and they close at 12:30 every day of the week. Chiquitos have a sale of alcohol Monday to Sunday until 12 o'clock with the closing times at 12:30. Directly opposite Cineworld is Nando's, which have a sale of alcohol from Monday to Sunday until 12 o'clock with the closing time at 12:30. All of these three premises offer a sit-down restaurant. The furthest end of the old dairy site is an Asda stores, which are licensed to sell alcohol 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And around approximately 200 yards from Cineworld is the Middlesex Arms Public House. They have a sale of alcohol for the following hours: 10 o'clock until 12 o'clock Sunday to Wednesday, and from 10 until 1 o'clock Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays. Next door to the old dairy site is a small retail park, which offers a B&M stores which have off sales from 8 until midnight, and an Aldi stores which is also nearby, and they have sales of alcohol up until 11 o'clock every day. The application has been made correctly in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003. There is, however, been parts of Section 182 that the applicant may not have considered fully. And these are steps to promote the licensing objectives. Applicants are in particular, this is on point 8.39 of Section 182, are in particular expected to obtain sufficient information to enable them to demonstrate when setting out the steps they propose to promote the licensing objectives. That licensing objectives and applicants are expected to make it clear why the steps they are proposing are appropriate for the premises. 8.45. All parties are expected to work together in partnerships to ensure that the licensing objectives are promoted collectively. Where there are no disputes, the steps that applicants propose to take to promote the licensing objectives are set out in the operating schedule. We'll very often translate directly into conditions that will be attached to the premises licence with a minimal amount of fuss. 8.46. For some premises, it's possible that no measures will be appropriate to promote one or more of the licensing objectives, for example, because they are adequately covered by other existing legislation. It is, however, important that all operating schedules should be precise and clear about the measures that are proposed to promote each licensing objectives. On summary, the application, when it was submitted, was very light in conditions and steps to be made into promoting the licensing objectives. However, when requested, the applicant provided evidence on how they plan to manage the site. Prior to the hearing, during at the time a report was being put together, the applicant provided further evidence on how they can demonstrate due diligence. This may go in some way in addressing issues that were not acknowledged when the application was submitted. While recommendation does stand, however, the license to be granted. However, it may be worth the applicant during the mission, offering conditions and possible engagement with the local area to establish a working relationship that puts any fears of residents and local councillors at ease. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. Obviously, I will have a few points of clarification. I think my members making some faces might have some points of clarification at this before we go forward to hear from the applicant. Obviously, we've now got a much better map, so thank you very much for providing a map that clearly indicates your licensable activities. In your presentation just now, you said that the licensed activities will be taking place on the cinema level floor. Is that correct?
Yeah. Cinema level floor plan, which is the first floor.
Okay. The reason I ask that, because I've got one, members will probably have it as well, which is ground floor plan, and that also has a shaded green area that says public areas where all licensable activities are permitted. So are we now looking at licensed activities on the ground floor as well, Stephen?
Based on the first floor level, it does delineate that the public areas where all licensable activities are permitted.
Stephen, sorry, you missed my question was, are we looking at have you got the ground floor level plan with you?
Yes, Chairman. Sorry, to clarify, yes, we would be looking at the ground floor level nearby where the Starbucks coffee shop is.
And also
as well.
the staircases, or am I reading that wrong?
I don't think they've highlighted the staircases.
Well, the staircases are green. The staircases to the far right of your map, there and there, shaded green. Yes. We will hear from the applicant, but I just want to clarify your understanding. We all understand maps and plans, and that's what we approve after all. I'm looking at green shaded areas for staircases.
I believe, sorry, Chairman, yeah, you're absolutely right. We're looking at all the areas highlighted in green.
Okay. The pack that we also did receive prior to today had a different level as well, didn't it? It didn't just have cinema level, ground level. It had a level called projection level. Do we have an up-to-date plan for that one? And is there an attempt to have licensable activity on that? If you're not aware, just say, we'll ask the applicant when it gets to theirs. But I just want to hear from you, Stephen.
I believe it'd be best to. I'll get an updated plan for that. Just the three levels and the outside areas that we've just discussed. And
the last point to me, just to clarify, I'm conscious that in the pack that you supplied us, there was a consultation process that indicated the licensable activities for the sale of alcohol were up until 3 o'clock.
That's correct, Chair.
And the pack that's published, the page 4, the table that's gone out, shows the times of 24 hours for the sale of alcohol. Page 4.
That's correct, Chairman.
So what's correct, Stephen? 3 o'clock or 24 hours?
3 o'clock is what they've applied for,
So there's an
Chairman.
error in the pack. Members, can you note that on page 4? It should actually, the alcohol should be removed from the 24-hour application and just should be for 3 o'clock, as was circulated to the ward councillors. Members, any more points just to clarify before we go forward and hear from the applicant? Councillor Allen, you indicated?
Yes, please. You've mentioned all the places that have off licences or licensed premises. How many of them are on and off premises drinking?
How many of them? Sorry, beg your pardon.
You mentioned Asda, Frankie and Benny's, and how many of them have a licence to drink on and off the premises, or sell alcohol on and off the premises?
I don't have the information to hand about how many would actually have off sales, but the Asda stores and the Aldi's and the B&M stores do have off sales, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, thank you for your presentation. We'll now move to the applicant.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can I just go back to the plans? I wasn't intending to start here, but
that would be great. Thank you. Just clarify that. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
The application that was submitted to this committee did not have any of the marking on that you see before you today. Any of this green marking, the red marking, or this. The plans that were submitted were simply a green outline, which is how Cineworld always submit their applications, with a note at the bottom saying public areas where all licensable activities may be permitted. So on the basis of the application that was submitted, we are applying for the whole of the premises to be licensed, which is the way in which they normally do, to give them flexibility to offer the licensable activities throughout the whole of the premises. Now, that is the application that was submitted. Under section, I think it's 18, I haven't got the act before me, then you are required to grant the application except for taking into consideration any representations which are received. Now, the representations which have been received relate not to the areas where alcohol should be sold, but to whether alcohol should be sold, really in effect to the terminal hour. As I understand the representations, it is in effect objections to the late hour for the sale of alcohol, not in relation to where the alcohol should or should not be sold, or indeed where any of the licensable activities should be sold. So looking at your solicitor, I'm sure she will advise you that having submitted the application for the whole of the premises and no representations having been received in respect of that, then in my respectful submission, the licence, if it is granted, should be granted for the whole of the area that has been submitted.
Yes, just please continue, we'll discuss. Sorry, please continue. Do your presentation. We'll make it very clear about Section 182 of the guidance and our reading and understanding and how we uphold the 4 objectives on that. So that's fine.
Right. So Cineworld Cinemas is a very well-known operator with 96 cinemas throughout the UK. As I say, the application which is before you is a, if I can put it this way, because I know it's not a very popular comment, but a standard Cineworld application. The plans have been lodged in exactly the same way as every Cineworld application is lodged, with the colouring saying public areas where all licensable activities should be permitted. The Old Dairy development, as Mr. Dormer has very comprehensively outlined to you, is a large development containing a number of outlets, including Asda Supermarket, for whom I also act, and indeed I licensed the Asda Supermarket in the Old Dairy development. And as you've heard, that has a 24-hour licence for off-sales. Also in this complex, there's well-known chains such as Nando's, Franco and Benny's, Chiquitos, etc. So it is a very comprehensive development. As you would expect, a major company such as Cineworld Cinemas has substantial procedures in place to ensure that the licensing objectives are promoted. Such procedures include comprehensive CCTV system, Challenge 25, very importantly, and there are details in your pack of the training program which Cineworld Cinema insists that all their staff go through. And on top of that, and also in your pack, is details of all the audits that Cineworld Cinemas ensure that their cinemas go through, so that they can check that their policies and procedures are being complied with. Prior to coming here today, one of the regional managers, who is not here this afternoon, did a check of Cineworld Cinemas' incident registers over the preceding 6 months. And I think it might be helpful for you to know that there was not one single alcohol-related incident in any of their 96 cinemas throughout the UK over the preceding 6 months. I've been acting for Cineworld Cinemas now for over 10 years, and in my experience over that period, there hasn't been a single review of any one of their cinemas. I would hope that you would accept that that is testimony to the fact that the policies and procedures that this company has in place work in a way to promote the licensing objectives. During the course of this application, the cinema manager and myself, cinema manager Sam, the regional manager Kelly, and myself met with Inspector Emily Mitchell Sergeant Alice Botha and Sergeant Spoor to discuss this proposal, and that meeting took place on site. In fact, I think we were in Nando's, weren't we? Having discussed the proposed operation and virtually the details that I've told you today, that there haven't been any alcohol-related incidents, that the cinemas have a very good reputation as far as their operation is concerned, the police indicated that they were happy with the way in which this cinema was going to operate, and that is evident from the fact that the police have not lodged any representation. So it is clear from that element that the police do not believe that if you are kind enough to grant this application, the grant of the licence would jeopardise the prevention of crime and disorder objective. And in this regard, I'd refer you to paragraph 2.1 of the guidance, which states that licensing authorities should look to the police as the main source of advice on crime and disorder. So basically, the police have no problems with the grant of this application. There were no representations from the Environmental Health Officer that the grant of this application would undermine the prevention of public nuisance objectives, and indeed there's no objections from the Environmental Health Officer. There's no representation from any of the responsible authorities in respect of public safety, and no representations from the Children's Safeguarding Board or the Trading Standards Authority that the grant would be contrary to the protection of children from harm objective. So all of the people who have the expertise in the licensing objectives, crime, disorder, crime, public nuisance, etc., are saying to this committee that in their expertise, the grant of this application would not jeopardise the licensing objectives. So you then have to look at what objections do you have and whether they reveal anything which is contrary to the licensing objectives. So if we look at the objections in some detail, I'm looking at page 41, which is Councillor Kaufman's objection, which is a little confusing me because I see they're sitting in the wrong seats. You don't look like Councillor Judy Kelly. No, not to worry. It was just a bit confusing. So Councillor Kaufman says he believes that the cinema will be good for South Ruislip in respect of jobs and entertainment. He then goes on to say, but he believes that the sale of alcohol until 3 a.m. is quite unnecessary, as in his opinion it will cause antisocial behaviour. Well, the first point I would make is that whether it is quite unnecessary or not is not a relevant consideration, because need is not a matter that this committee can take into account. He then goes on to say, in his opinion, again, that is a speculative comment, and the chairman is smiling, so I suspect he that I would submit that it is a speculative opinion, and consequently is not one which the committee can take into consideration. I will address the committee on Thwaites at the end of the in my final submission. So I would respectfully submit that Councillor Kaufman's representation is not one which could lead this committee to either reduce the hours or to refuse this application for a number of reasons. First of all, because it's speculative. Secondly, because his opinion is not supported by either the police or the Environmental Health Officer. And thirdly, and possibly more importantly, it's not supported by any evidence that his opinion could in fact be realistically come into play. And whereas the cinema is not open, there are a number of reasons or ways in which evidence could be produced, such as evidence that there is antisocial behaviour already in the area, evidence that Cineworld cinemas up and down the country are not operated in a correct manner, police evidence that, as I say, there's crime and disorder in the area, but none of that has been produced. It is simply Councillor Kaufman is perfectly entitled to take a view, but it is not one which, in my respect for submission, this committee is entitled to take, because it does not conform with any legal principles upon which this application could be judged. He also says some people will go to the cinema late at night just to get a drink. Well, certainly, and I have two people from Cineworld Cinemas here with me, that is not Cineworld's experience. For a start, and I hope they won't mind me saying, drinks at Cineworld Cinemas are far from the cheapest drink you could possibly get, and particularly bearing in mind when you have a 24 Asda literally on site, I would suspect it very unlikely that people would choose to go into the cinema to buy a drink, unless of course they were going to the cinema, but would far more likely go to Asda, where the drinks will be an awful lot cheaper. Then the second objection we have is an objection from Councillor Kelly on page 43 of the agenda. Councillor Kelly objects to the sale of alcohol until 3 a.m. on the grounds of public disorder and protection of children. I would make the same comments as for Councillor Kaufman, that the objection is not supported by the police, it's pure speculation. There's no evidence of any existing disorder at the cinema or in the environ at the present time, and the police have chosen not to object. And the final objection is by Simon, whose name the surname has been redacted, so I'm not sure, and he's not here this afternoon. He suggests that he is concerned about the entertainment at this venue. I would respectfully submit that a cinema is likely to request all of the licensable activities that we have requested, because if they do have films, say blockbusters or whatever, they might want some live music to entertain people as they're coming into a blockbuster. It doesn't happen very regularly, but it is something that cinemas like to have the flexibility to be able to do if they choose to do so. So, taking everything together, I would say this is an application by a responsible company with an impeccable record in the operation of licensed cinemas, and I would ask the committee to grant the application in line with your officer's recommendations contained on page 3 of the report, which recommends the grant of this application subject to the conditions contained in Appendix 1, which is page 13 of the report, and all of those conditions would be acceptable to Cineworld if the committee chose to impose them, as that is exactly the way in which Cineworld cinemas operate in any event. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Just to clarify, you just said that's exactly how Cineworld operate in any event. Challenge 25, that's an operation scheme. Can you tell me why in your application then you actually didn't put down Challenge 25?
We put Challenge 21 down because there has been all of the applications for Cineworld Cinema up until very, very recently have been for Challenge 21, but Cineworld Cinemas have now come to operating Challenge 25.
Glad to see they're following Hillingdon's example and coming to 25. You mentioned also, we've all noted there is no actual representation for any of the responsible authorities. We have noted that. And thank you for clarifying the maps, because the plans that we all had in the first pack aren't colour, as you're probably aware, the pack we've got. So there was no indication. I know there was a key that said licence of activity, but it was so small, members, you may see it on all floors. So just to clarify, the whole building is what you're looking to licence? Rather than what we were told in our pack, which, as you clearly saw, said that it would be in the foyer area on the first floor. Just to clarify, that's what you're looking
correct,
for.
Chair, but I think that Mr. Dawn was trying to be very helpful.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's good. And Stephen, your recommendation is still the same now that you're aware that the application is for licensable activity to be made across the whole building?
It remains the same, Chair.
Okay, that's it. That's great. Any other points of clarification of the applicant? We will have a lovely discussion, but just any points to clarify?
Question again.
Yes, so go ahead.
Thank you. Alcohol. You're going to have it in kiosks. Is it going to be sold by measure, or plastic glass? And how are you going to operate the on-off site on that?
Insofar as the sale of alcohol is concerned, my understanding is that everything is decanted into plastic glasses at the point of sale. And insofar as an on-off license is concerned, it would operate in any way, in the normal way that an on-off would operate. If people wanted to take it outside, they could do so.
So if we move forward now, we'll move on. As we note, there's no responsible authority, so we go to other parties. We'll take Councillor Judy Kelly first. If you'd like to press the microphone, Councillor Kelly, that'd be great.
Beg your pardon. Yes, as you know, I'm concerned about the effect this will be having on children. How do you handle the situation when there are children on the premises seeing films suitable for young children, and alcohol is being sold on the premises? And I would just like to make one little comment, actually, before we go any further, about the fact that there's been no adverse comments from police or anyone else. In Rochdale, the police and the legal services spent 10 years denying that any harm was coming to the young people of Rochdale. So the fact that the police have not recognised that there could be problems doesn't want to be.
Councillor Kelly.
Sorry to interrupt you, Councillor Kelly, but we should if you could try and keep your representation to the application itself.
I was just answering a comment that was made about something being just my opinion.
Sure.
I was backing it up with with facts.
Thank
anyway,
you.
So can I ask what...
Councillor Kelly, at this point, you don't ask questions.
Sorry.
You just make a presentation. If
Okay.
you look at the pack...
Well, I'm concerned that there's going to be children on the premises when there's alcohol being sold, and that this is not acceptable. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Chairman. My main concern about the sale of alcohol up until 3, and I understand this is now 5, is not so much the sale of alcohol within the actual premises itself.
Councillor Kaufman, it's not till 5.
It's not. It's still till 3.
It's always been till 3.
Right.
The pack may have been misleading at the front, but as we clarified with the officer earlier, the application for, and we will go through this and clarify it all before, but the application for alcohol sales is till 3 o'clock in the morning. Late night refreshment, which is heated food above ambient.
Right.
Discussion, I suppose, is popcorn, late night refreshment. But beyond that, alcohol is 3 o'clock. Late night refreshment, the application is till 5. Refreshment is not alcohol.
Okay. My main concern is that, people turning out of Cineworld at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning, bearing in mind that you've got now, 169 dwellings on the site, and people that decant that going to the station or whatever have to move past these dwellings. I am concerned about disturbance, night disturbance, etc., at that time of the morning, going through the estate within the whole complex. Also, I'm not sure that Asda store have got 24 hours. It might only be the petrol station, but I was with Asda yesterday, and I wasn't aware that it had 24 hours. But let me get this quite clear from the start. We in South Ruislip absolutely welcome Cineworld, and we're really thrilled to bits that you're here. It's just crossing the T's and dotting the I's on this alcohol business, and then we're through. And I'm sure everyone will enjoy it tremendously. So my main concern is antisocial behaviour. We do get antisocial behaviour in South Ruislip. We do work very closely with the police on this, and we're always informed about antisocial behaviour. We've recently had stabbings, all sorts of things go on in South Ruislip. So it's not a super-duper clean, squeaky clean area. There is problems. Now, I know there's 24-hour security on the site. However, my main concern is for the residents that live in those flats of noise nuisance from people leaving that cinema at 3 a.m. in the morning. And could I just clarify one other point, and that is the fact that when the film starts, does the bar close? Okay, let me see. And when you talk about out of the complex, does that mean out of the cinema down into the foyer and not outside? It doesn't. It means outside as well. Okay. So you could have a situation where you could have noise and disturbance outside the complex, the cinema complex, with people drinking alcohol. So those are my main points. And
okay, well, we will move very quickly to the the subcommittee discussion, and you'll be able to answer those questions.
Sure.
I really wanted to hear from you both your presentation. I heard from Councillor Kelly yourself. Councillor Kaufman, you said that your concern was about people leaving at 3 a.m., walking through the estate to the station.
yes.
Is the station open at 3 a.m.?
Well, it is on Saturday and Sunday.
Is it? I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
asking.
it's the night tube, yeah.
It's open till 3 a.m. on.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
thank you. All right, that makes sense then. Thank you, because I can understand that. Okay, thank you very much indeed for that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Now, as I did indicate, we are moving swiftly along, I think, to the discussion by the subcommittee. What usually happens, and we try and keep it nice and civil, please, we just try and clarify what the application is, the questions mainly from my subcommittee here, but there will be questions, I'm sure, from those interested parties. And if you could answer those and just clarify, that'll be as good as that will really help. There is one point, Claire. We have a submission from yourself, I believe, one of the last appendix items, and it got me thinking about the actual application. It's not about whether popcorn is a licensable late night refreshment, but I would be interested to hear your views if that is over ambient. What I want to hear from you, in your submission, which is the second from last page 47, you state that the concession area that sells food and drink will be closed once the last film has started. Alcohol is served from the concession counter only. But we've already heard today you want to have mobile sales. So why is this in my pack? If you have changed your mind, you haven't written to us and let us know. So if you can clarify where you wish to sell the alcohol from. But the main kick, the first sentence, is the interesting one. The concession area itself will be closed once the last film has started. Can you confirm that will be the case? Maybe a question is an operation question that Sam will probably answer, but can you confirm that when the last film starts, the concession area closes as well? Well, that's what you've stated.
Yeah, the reason I'm hesitating is because this Appendix 5 was put in at the request of the licensing authority, who asked us to provide an explanation as to how it was intended that the premises would operate.
You haven't intended that because you said you're going to do mobile.
Well, the reason the mobile came into play this afternoon was because when we came to the hearing this afternoon, the plans had been coloured. And I said, how did that happen? Because we didn't colour them, and our application effectively relates to the whole building, as you have said. Mr. Dormer had coloured the plans in, I think, to be helpful to the committee to show where normally things would take place. But as you can appreciate, the way Cineworld Cinema operates, like all companies, is an evolving situation. And I said to Mr. Dormer this afternoon, well, it may be, and I'm not saying it will be, it may be that in South Ruislip they might want to use mobile units in the screens, which is what they do in certain other cinemas. And when I saw that the plans had been coloured, I thought, well, hold on a second, because I didn't ask for it to be restricted in this way. I wanted to ensure that the application gave...
So I'm sorry, just for a second, Claire. I know you're going on with this, but just to clarify, the point that you mentioned here was prior to the map and has nothing to do with the map, to be fair. It says the concession area that sells food and drink will be closed once the last film has started. Can you confirm this is going to be the case? And it also, you state here, the alcohol will be served from the concession counter only. Can you confirm those 2 points are correct? That's what I'm asking.
At the present time, yes, but we are not seeking a licence that limits it to that. because we haven't offered those as conditions. We are saying
you stated them as fact. That's what I wanted to hear.
That is the way it is intended to operate at the present time.
Great, that's fine on that point. Sir Alan?
Can we see clarification here that if that is what you're proposing to do, if you then change your mind and have the kiosk going round and round and round, you will come back and put another application in?
Well,
it would be a variation, minor or major variation, but it would be a variation application. You're correct. Yes.
Sorry, could I just answer that, because that is not what we have applied for, and if conditions, we have said that this is the way we intend.
If you're not applying for that, Claire, do you want to remove that statement? Because that's what we're looking at.
In that case, yes.
Because we've had this submission from yourself where you said that the alcohol will be served when the last film starts. But you're saying that's not how you're going to operate.
No. What I am saying is that that is exactly how we are intending to operate at this moment in time. But next week, next month, next year, Cineworld Cinemas may change that. Now, there is absolutely no reason for conditions to be imposed on this licence to that effect this afternoon. Firstly, because this committee can only impose conditions on a licence if it is required to promote the licensing objectives for it to do so, and if there are representations requiring those conditions to be imposed, neither of which are applicable this afternoon.
I'm sure you can see our predicament though, Claire. In this submission you said that you want to sell alcohol until the last film starts. And also in that same submission you said the last film starts 9 o'clock Sunday to Thursday, 11 o'clock roughly on a Saturday or Friday, but then also taking into consideration large releases where you have a midnight screening, I presume. A midnight screening. That's what you said in your submission. So we're now looking at, you said you want to sell alcohol up to 3 o'clock, but you've told us you will stop selling alcohol at midnight.
At the moment, yes, but the license.
So that's what we're looking at. That's why we're saying, well, that's the oxymoron we're looking at. You're saying that you won't sell alcohol. I'd like to hear from the actual two gentlemen who actually work there. Will the bars be open beyond the time of the last film starting?
Well, hold on a second, because the application submitted, which is an application for alcohol till 3 o'clock, is the application which is before this committee. Now, that was what we submitted.
That's fine, but what we're seeking, well, through you, Chair, Councillor seeking clarification on exactly what your statement is suggesting.
Because that's your submission says the alcohol will stop once the last film starts. Your submission also says the last film will start at midnight.
Yes. So
hang on.
Sorry, can I just clarify? We submitted our application. We were asked by the licensing authority to provide further information as to how it was intended to operate at the moment. Now, that is what that supplemental statement is about, as an advisory information pack for the committee as to how we are intending to operate at the moment. It was not intended, and there was absolutely no reason for it to be used to impose conditions on the licence, because there was no reason. There's no reason of the licensing objectives. Nobody is objecting there's no evidence that we can't sell alcohol to 3 o'clock, and consequently there's no reason why any conditions should be imposed limiting the hours.
Yeah, I get that. I also get that, for example, that when we first saw this pack with the not clear maps, which you've seen the pack we had, it didn't indicate that you would be selling alcohol or the option to sell alcohol from the stairways, because that's what you're applying for.
That's what the plans
Correct?
are. Absolutely.
That's what you're applying.
Yes.
You're applying to sell alcohol
throughout the whole
building.
Yes.
Throughout the whole building,
yes.
whereas some places don't.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Allen.
I've got to be honest, I'm a bit confused. You're saying there's been no objections, but as you said, this is what you intend at the moment. So residents are taking it and what's in this information pack. If you are now saying, well, that is today, but tomorrow we may change, that's not giving the residents the chance to have their concerns, because it's based on what we've got in front of us.
No. The application is as per the application. That is what was submitted. That was what was sent to the responsible authorities. If anybody asked to see the application, that is what they would have seen. And that application clearly stipulates that we intend to sell alcohol to 3 o'clock. Now, if it helps the committee, I'm quite happy to withdraw the statement that was submitted as a matter of goodwill, as an information point, because it seems to be confusing matters out of all recognition. That is not what we are applying for. That is how we will operate at the moment. But
just to clarify, Claire, your application pack also states a challenge 21 policy rather than a 25.
Well, if you wish to grant challenge 21, I'm happy to do that. It doesn't make a job.
I just want to clarify, if you're saying you're now removing that statement,
no,
because the statement mentions 25, your application mentions 21, just to say. That's where we are.
Well, we are quite happy to have a challenge 21 condition.
I'm just saying that's what your application is. If you're removing your Appendix 5, that's the only point where you've actually stipulated that you will be happy to do a challenge 25. In your application pack, done by Gossels, I believe by you yourself, it says challenge 21.
Well, I'm quite happy to remove the statement. If the statement is going to mean that you are going to restrict or impose conditions on this licence, then I would seek to remove that statement. But equally, I am happy to offer a condition that we will operate challenge 25. And the reason I'm saying this is because this application has to be decided on the law. It is not a matter for the councillors just simply imposing their personal opinions on the matter. There has to be evidence upon which conditions are imposed. And at the moment, we have no evidence from anybody suggesting that there should be any conditions that the last sale for late night refreshment should be such and such, the last sale for this or that should be such and such.
Councillor Allen?
No, I think I've listened to what's being said. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson? Just to clarify, it's not really our opinion. It was something that you yourself offered up as an example. You've stated in your own submission that the last alcohol is served when the last film starts. I still haven't heard from these two gentlemen whether that's the case. I would like to hear that, but I know you don't want to speak, or you're not willing for them to speak. It'll be nice to hear from the actual gentleman whose name's going to be the DPS whether he's going to stop selling alcohol when the last film starts. I would like to hear that.
Well, he can speak in a minute, but the last alcohol, they may start selling. They may. We've applied for films for 24 hours. There may be occasions when films start at 2 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't know.
Well, that's what I'm trying to hear from him.
And if films start at 2 o'clock in the morning, then they would want to be able to sell alcohol till 3 o'clock. Sam.
Okay, from my point of view, the only time that we've shown films at 2 a.m. is the last Star Wars. Actually, some cinemas played 24-hour Star Wars. The condition that you're talking about is we would stop concessions, food, drink when the last film goes in. We would. Right now, that is how I plan to operate. But
I understand it, sir.
Yeah, that is exactly what we do. But we still want the condition, if Cineworld change and make us, that's why we want the licence till 3, just in case things change. So we don't want any restrictions from a business point of view. But as we operate right now, I'd rather stop once the last film goes in, and we will operate like that. But things change in this business, and 24-hour Star Wars, that was the first time I've ever seen that, and it's going to happen every single Star Wars.
Councillors? Any more points? I think it's clarified. So we have an application. I think you've accepted. You're removing the Appendix 5 from the submission. We're looking at an application to sell alcohol up until the hours of 3 o'clock. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen. Late night refreshment until 5, and 24-hour performance of cinema, live music, dance, and associated items, all within the confines of the whole site. So we'll have closing remarks, and closing remarks go. Sorry, Councillors Kelly and Kaufman, I sort of just skipped by you. Was there any points you wanted to clarify of the applicant before we went forward?
Yeah, could you just explain what mobile sales of alcohol are? Is this a trolley going around the actual cinema complex.
It's called a Hawkins trolley, and it's basically, it would be full of sweets and soft drinks. And I have never put alcohol on a Hawkins trolley, but such shows like the theatre shows, the Royal Opera House, they would gladly buy products, but they wouldn't. We don't do shows. Well, the last show goes in at 8 o'clock for one of those shows. So, yeah, the Hawkins trolley I couldn't see us using, but again, we don't want to be restricted. That's all it is, but it's not something we currently do.
Yes, I would just like clarification about how you're going to protect young people from the sale of alcohol when there are children's programs on. What do you do then? Take the alcohol off sale?
Well, insofar as protection of children from harm is concerned, then we will be operating a Challenge 25 policy.
Right, thank
you. Okay, so I do apologise missing you two esteemed councillors out. So closing remarks from each party. So we're going to sort of a reverse order scenario, so our applicant gets to go last. I believe it went Kelly Kaufman, so it's Kaufman-Kelly this time. Councillor Kaufman, anything now that you've heard all the submissions you'd like to add? And if you can keep it salient and brief, I would be very grateful.
No, I think I've covered all my notes.
Okay, Councillor Kelly?
No,
Nothing further to add? Okay, that's good. I'll ask the responsible authorities, they're not here. So now, Stephen, we have a somewhat different application from what we were given in the pack, but always the one that the applicant felt they were given in. I must stress that. It's a failing on our side rather than yours, because it wasn't made clear to us that we're looking at the whole site. But anything you'd like to add before we go forward?
What I would like to add is the reasons for trying to highlight where the concession stand is. It was mentioned in that in the appendix submission from the solicitor, and I believe it's Appendix 5, regarding the concession stand. Hence why we needed to identify, so our panel and the objectors or the representation, people making representations, were clear where the concession stand actually was and in position in terms of where it was in the building. So just to clarify that, Chair.
Okay, applicant, gentlemen, or perhaps Claire?
As the committee is aware, this application has to be decided purely on the law. Paragraph 9.43 of the guidance states that the authority's determination should be evidence-based, and that is supported in by the High Court decision in Thwaites, in which Mrs. Justice Black stated that the licensing authority should not consider inappropriate speculation, but proper evidence. In that case, she stated that the magistrates, because it was an appeal case, gave their own views excessive weight, and their resulting decision limited the hours of operation without it having been established that it was necessary to do so to promote the licensing objectives. Their decision was unlawful and must be quashed. So in the current situation, we have the application that was submitted by ourselves. That is the application we stand and fall by, save for the offer of a condition that we will operate Challenge 25 in the event that the application is granted. The situation is that to that application we have 3 objections, none of which, in my respectful submission, provide any evidence upon which this authority could come to any decision that this application should be refused or any of the hours reduced. All of the responsible authorities who have the expertise in the promotion of the licensing objectives are saying to you that insofar as they are concerned, the grant of this application will not affect the promotion of the licensing objectives. The councillors and the residents' objection are speculation, and whereas I understand the reasons for their concerns, I would say that that is exactly why the Act is framed in the way it is. If the councillors' concerns were to come to fruition, which the evidence from the operation of 96 other cinemas tend to conclude that they won't, then that is what the review procedure is for. If a week down the line, 2 weeks down the line of these premises opening, Councillor Kelly or Kaufman come to this committee and say, well, there were 20 youths hanging around outside the cinema, they were all underage, they were making a terrible noise and they were drinking, I want to review this licence, then that is very good evidence upon which this committee would have the authority to impose conditions or reduce the hours of the cinema. But as we sit at the moment, I would respectfully suggest that there is absolutely not a scrap of evidence before this committee which could legally empower them to either refuse the application or to reduce the hours that have been requested. And in all the circumstances, I ask you to grant the application in accordance with your officer's recommendations and subject to the conditions contained in Appendix 1 of the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. We ask you now to all step outside. We'll take part in deliberations. Conscious that it's about 3 o'clock, we should be able to come to a resolution today. There is some areas for water and whatever outside, and we'll call you back in once you're ready.